Reddit, what is your craziest dorm story? NSFW. Okay, so this one time I came home from class and my roommate was like, yo, come check this out, and so I did come and check that out, and when I did, it was 4 Bud Light sitting in his closet. So I was like, well, you can't have alcohol in the dorms, it's against the rules, and he was like, I know, but I have it anyways. Long story short, later we shut all the blinds and drank them while playing video games. That guy was a pretty wild dude. Edit. Thanks for the gold, stranger. Because of you, my subtle passive-aggressive references to my internet popularity have increased dramatically. Had a guy light one of the rooms on my floor on fire. He never got charged for it. But we knew it was him because googling his name led to an article about him lighting wildfires in his home state. Then he wrote a fake death threat to himself to gain sympathy and distract everyone from the whole fire thing. He was moved to a different dorm. Then he stabbed himself with scissors on campus and claimed to have been attacked. Campus police saw through his bullshit this time. He was expelled and threatened with arrest should he ever set foot on campus again. A year later I googled his name and he had killed himself. I was visiting a friend at another school for the first time. He and I were planning on smoking until we walked into his dorm room and saw a girl on his bed in labor. We were both speechless until his roommate came running back from the bathroom with a wet towel and said, "Don't freak out. Don't freak out." The girl turned out to be the roommate's sister who lived nearby and was visiting. She went into labor a few weeks early, so everyone was thrown off guard. They eventually took an ambulance to the hospital, and once they were gone we saw that she was sitting on my friend's bed when her water broke. We ended up cleaning up the mess for a while. Then smoked like never before in order to get the image of a total stranger screaming her lungs out of our heads. I was a freshman and not particularly used to what drunks are like. So I left my dorm room's door open while I was in case any neighbors wanted to pop by. One Friday night, some big guy who I didn't know strolls into my room, smelling like he was drenched in booze. He walks in a slow circle around the center of the room, bobbing his head and making uns noises as he goes, and then leaves without ever having acknowledged me. I stopped leaving my door open after that. After the fact, it was pretty funny. At the time it happened though, I was pretty sure I was gonna get raped. A friend of mine tells a story about his freshman year in a dorm with a roommate. The roommate was heading off to class, and my friend was ready to enjoy some quality alone time with some specialist gentleman's literature. For some reason, he decided this session was going to occur completely nude. Having disrobed, sat at his desk, firing up the internet. There was the rustling of keys in the door. For some reason, the roommate was coming back into the room. Thinking unfathomably quickly, he grabbed the open can of Dr. Pepper on the desk and poured it all over his body. As the door opened, he said, "God damn it. I spilled this Dr. Pepper all over myself." Mental reflexes of cat. My brother's frat flooded the second floor in the winter. They lay down plastic sheeting and then opened all the windows. It froze and was a badass indoor ice skating for a few days. Then the second floor collapsed through the first floor into the basement. They lost their charter. It's a miracle nobody died. This is the reason why you always have an engineer in your frat. One time I was up late doing some homework and I finally finished up. So I went to the bathroom to brush my teeth. I was just standing there staring into the mirror, and all of a sudden some kid on a unicycle comes in through the bathroom wearing a rainbow colored Phantom of the Opera mask and a thong. He salutes me as he comes through and then went down the hall. Apparently no one else saw him that night. E/1 for Grammaticus trolls. My freshman year I worked in addition to being in school. It was a Saturday night and I was scheduled to work very early the next morning. So I figured I'd shower that night so I could sleep a little bit later. I go into the showers on my floor, turn on the light, pull back the curtain, and I see every single guy on my floor standing together in the same shower stall. All of them completely clothed and standing in complete silence. Each of them had a red plastic cup filled with ping pong gonads. As soon as they saw me, each of them screamed and ran like bloody hell out of there. I never knew what the duck that was about. This was freshman year. One night, someone left a pile of sheet right in the middle of our communal unisex bathroom. The people living on our floor, myself included, thought it was hilarious. Our R didn't find it nearly as funny. He encouraged anyone with information on the phantom pooper to come forward. He put up a poster in the hallway for us to write on. With our bathroom being violated makes me feel. At the top, we filled it up with heartfelt sentiments such as it makes me feel shitty. How could anyone be such an asshole? And I've been pinching off my tears ever since. We never did discover the identity of the phantom pooper. I just realized, considering the fact that my roommate was a duck and coke dealer, very lit crazy stuff actually happened in my dorm room. Couple homeless people. Couple very drunk people. But nothing too out there. It's funny the massive variety of people that do coke though. People you'd never think did drugs. One time, during a snowstorm, a girl in my dorm lost a bet and had to run a lap around the outside of the dorm in a bikini. It had already snowed 4-5 inches and it was still snowing. Another time, I was in my dorm and my roommate was home for the weekend. Around 4:30 or 5 AM, I was still awake. I heard a scratching squeaking sound on my door. I got up and opened the door. And there was a girl standing there leaning on the door frame. I said "Can I help you?" She smiled and then ran down the hall. I just shrugged and went to bed. The next day I found out the peepholes, which were apparently very easy to unscrew from the outside, from all the doors on my floor were stolen. Except mine. TL. Doctor, I caught a girl trying to steal my peephole once. First story, we turned the bathroom into a sauna slip and slide room. We plugged the shower drains and blocked the part with the toilets with sandbags because we didn't want the water getting over there and getting toilety. We then turned the showers on and flooded the bathroom and partied. Eventually our RA walked in, looked at what we were doing, and promptly left since if he saw it he would have had to stop it. Second story, someone played a prank on our dorm by releasing a duck on our floor, the third floor. The campus police were called so they took the duck away. I forget who did it, but when questioned as to how, they said, "I walked up to the duck, put it in a box, and walked away with it." My roommate spent the night at a girl's place to hook up. He was too drunk, passed out naked in her bed, and pissed himself. Edit, I should mention that this all happened when she left to go to the bathroom to freshen up. Came back to the disaster. There was a pot farm in the ceiling between the floors of the dorm I was in back in sophomore year. I lived in the geek dorm of the school, but it was better known for being the party dorm. Drew Gus. Alcohol. 6 whatever all the time, and finding a goddamned pot farm in the ceiling wasn't that out of the ordinary. My sister once had a guy fall through her roof. I was there that day. Probably shouldn't be reading these as I'm at my new student orientation and sleeping in a dorm for the first time tonight. Oh well. Judging from your user, you're either going to be a raging alcoholic or be a straighter edge than a knife. Nah, he'll be straight edge for a little bit. Then drink once or twice a little and think that he can handle being drunk. Go to a party and get blackout. Brag about the hangover for the next 4 months and then become a normal college student. Duck in freshman. A couple of years ago during winter, I was in my room playing video games and whatever. Then my next door neighbor knocks on my door in his underwear, telling me that he needs my help. I was a bit weirded out, but whatever. So it turns out that he had taken 3 hits of LSD and was having a pretty shitty trip. His friend who lived on the same floor as us turned up and we both decided to look after him and make sure he didn't do anything stupid. He ended up doing something stupid anyway. He grabbed his wallet and started running around the campus at full speed. The guy's friend was high as duck and I'm chronically lazy and have asthma, so we couldn't catch up. The last I saw of him that night was when he ran off into the woods at the edge of campus. A friend of mine ended up calling the porters and found out that he had ran onto the main road and jumped into an oncoming car, shattering the windshield. I'd assumed he'd be arrested or at the very least spending a few days at the hospital after that. The next day, I woke up and went to get breakfast. As I left the room, the dude was coming back to his room wearing a hospital gown. Like barely anything had happened. He then accused me of stealing his wallet. On the first night of move-in at the freshman dorms, we were all required to meet in the common area to get to know our floor members at 8 PM. One half was girls. The other half was guys. We do a roll call and there's 3 people missing. 1 girl and a room of 2 guys. Their room is visible from the meeting area. So someone volunteers to knock on their door. They swing open the door and it's them with their shirts off wrapped in a bed sheet. They slowly walk out with sheet-eating grins on their face. 2 seconds later a girl bolts from the room and runs down the hall back to her room. Everyone on the floor is kind of just sitting in shocked silence when guy number 1 goes yeah. We hit that. And guy number 2 goes choo choo while pumping his arm. They get dressed, come out, and act like nothing happened. I kind of feel bad for the girl cause she earned the nickname Train and people would write sheet like choo choo or all aboard on the whiteboard she had on her door. Everything was consensual and she eventually owned it. She just was really embarrassed she got caught in front of the whole dorm floor. Probably the football hazing, the elephant walk. All freshmen were naked in a line on all fours. Your nose was taped to the next guy's butt and everyone had to begin crawling forward. If the tape came off of your nose or his butt, the tape was cut in half and reapplied. Then the crawl began again. The ducking laundry wars. Man. Nothing pissed me off more than going to collect my clean laundry, only to see it had been tossed out of its active cycle onto the floor. Still wet. What do you think I'm just gonna wait around for you to finish? This sheet would escalate so hard. It's crazy that we never actually encountered each other. I remember taking this bro's polo shirts, like a dozen of them, and spreading them out through different machines on high heat. One time I dropped a bunch of eggs into somebody's dryer load. I never started sheet with anybody, but I was never afraid to take it 100 times further at their go ahead. My roommate was this geeky 400-pound guy who watched Sailor Moon in the original Japanese. He had a tiny red-headed girlfriend who regularly beat the shit out of him in daily life. And he let her. On like 6 PM on a Thursday. He suddenly asks me if I can vacate the dorm room until 11. As they're going to have some romantic time. I was a little pissed he gave me no warning. But left anyways. Get back at midnight and walk into a scene of her in black vinyl bondage gear with a riding crop and a taxi driver's hat. Riding him. With him covered in welts from head to toe. Nope, the hell right out of there. My flatmate invited everyone to see a really big poop he took, claiming it was ducking huge man. We all saw it and it was definitely as advertised. 7/10 overall because the poop smell. My friend and I decided we would prank a mutual friend and so we bought glow-in-the-dark paint. We snuck into his dorm room while he was in class and painted giant big digs all over his dorm walls and ceiling. I'm talking like 8-foot big digs that are curving onto every corner of the room, jizzing all over the ceiling. It was just a wall of big ugly fat big digs coming everywhere. Luckily the paint dried on clear on the white walls, and when our friend went to bed that night, let's just say he definitely hated us. The paint really never came off, so him and his roommate, who hated us, had to sleep the rest of the semester gazing into the galaxy of big digs. I was one of only like 3 freshmen on my floor. The rest were sophomore guys who all knew each other really well from their first year in high school and chose to live together in the dorm that year. The other 2 floors were female. One of the sophomores down the hall had his girlfriend in town for Halloween from another college. And as the night went on and people were just all over the place partying, it got pretty rowdy. At one point fairly early in the night, the room across from me got a lot of attention as it basically sounded like a porno going down. Lots of, well, you all know the dumb stuff porn chicks say. And obvious 6 pounding on crappy dorm beds going down. Basically all of us were drunk and laughing outside the room enjoying the show. Until we realized the guy from down the hall couldn't find his girlfriend. It was so crazy and sad at the same time. As the dude just sat there outside the room with tears in his eyes. They had been together since high school. To make matters worse, his friends tried to console him by saying how they know she'd hooked up with a bunch of other guys and never told him. Poor dude was crushed. On the bright side, he just sold his startup for 7 figures. So there's that. Magic mushrooms during a fire drill. That is all. Our dorm faced a river trail, so at night my friends and I would launch water balloons with a massive slingshot out at the drunk people walking back. Hell, we'd do it in the day too. The number of windows in the dorm kept us safe, despite many people charging and looking at the bushes outside to see who was using the water balloons. Also, the phantometer. Not crazy, but I was making out with a girl freshman year in the dorms. It was right around Halloween. Had to pee, so I ran to bathroom. When I got back, we started making out again. Then my mouth started to tingle. In a bad way. I'm deathly allergic to peanuts. Turns out when I ran to the bathroom, she grabbed a Reese's peanut butter cup from the Halloween package her mom had sent her. The night ended there, for us. It continued on for me with a trip to hospital.